Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss fantasy Formula 1. In today's video, we're going to go over what has happened so far this season, what the meta has been like, and what the new meta is likely to be from Canada and maybe beyond, and as well what I predict the meta is going to be in a couple of races time. This is not going to be my personal team selection video. That will instead be out on Monday, but I don't really need to tell you what to do for next week. Like just buy Hulkenberg and you'll probably be fine, right? I think you've heard enough F1 fantasy content creators say that over the past couple of days since his performance at Spanish Grand Prix. So I thought instead of doing my classic team selection video in the beginning of the week, immediately after the weekend, discussing what happened to my team, I thought we would take a more overarching view and see what is going on right now, because I do think it is quite interesting, and I'll explain why. But before we get into that, I just want to say that at the top of the description, I do have my Twitch page linked. I do now stream on Twitch as well as YouTube for the deadline streams. Deadline streams, if you haven't been there, you should definitely be there. It's 2 hours before the qualifying every single race weekend. I now also stream over on Twitch, and to sort of meet the Twitch quota of enough streams, I will also be doing other miscellaneous type of streams there that I won't be doing on this YouTube channel, such as playing F1 Manager 2024, which I will be doing tomorrow on Thursday, the 5th of June at 8 p.m. Central European time. So if you want to come with me and play some F1 Manager, then make sure to tune in on Twitch tomorrow at 8 p.m. European time, that is. If you want to know when I go live, you can always put notifications on Twitch there. You could also just follow me on Twitter or on Blue Sky, link to that in the description as well, or join the Discord where I always post when I go live on any website, right? So make sure you join me for that if you want to. Just a bit of fun to be had while we wait for the Canadian Grand Prix to begin. Anyway, let's actually discuss the season so far and then move into explaining what I think the new meta is. And to understand what the new meta is going to be like and what the game is going to be like, let's take a little season summary view. And this is over on F1 Fantasy Tools. If you want the premium features, you can do so with my code up there, a bit cheaper for the first month. But probably the best way you can directly support the channel. And one great thing about the premium features on F1 Fantasy Tools is that you can input your team and get this season summary report, which I thought we'd scroll through, discuss what has happened so far to me this season, and then use that to figure out what we are going to do, in the future. So far this season, I've made 24 transfers. 23 of them being free transfers, 1 point set, so 1 extra transfer. I think this is good. If you have more red, if you have way too much red here, I think you've been playing the game too aggressively, and you probably need to scale it back. What's really interesting is you can actually see transfer impact per race. So the transfers you made, did they improve your team? And you can also sort this by points impact and budget impact. So flipping this, you can see that I've actually only made 1 transfer, 1 bad transfer so far this year, and that was a -2 pointer to switch Bortoleto to Alonso. And in addition, switching to the budget impact of that, I've again only made 1 bad transfer, and that was getting Alonso in when he took a -0.6, and Bortoleto stayed in price. So overall, my transfers this year has been very, very consistent and very, very good. And considering where we started the season, if you've been here all year, you would know what kind of start I had to the season. This is why, this is, by the way, my team 1 on my main team, the one team that I show you on every my team selection video. And that team is currently inside the top 10k for the first time this season, of starting horrendously. You can also see going through point distribution here, and I think this really, really shows how good McLaren have been so far this season, right? Let's combine the positive and negative points per asset. McLaren hasn't had any negative points so far this season, no DNFs. And compared to other constructors I've owned, McLaren just makes up a big chunk of that. So if you've been without McLaren so far this year, I think you're out of luck. And in addition to that, I mean, Piastri's been amazing. I obviously had Norris for a bit at the start, but Piastri has also been a very, very good pick throughout the year. And again, for qualifying and race, the points that matter the most, by far the most, we talk a lot about overtakes, we talk a lot about positions gained on this channel, we talk a lot about trying to get fastest lap and driver of the day points, but in the end, it's the race points that do matter. And so far, McLaren are 1-2ing or double podiuming almost every single race, or every single session even. And for that reason, the positions points so far this season have been a majority of the points I've gained if you've had McLaren plus one of the McLaren drivers as your premium assets of choice. And again, Piastri, for his price, he's just been a must-have so far this season, and it's why the meta has been what it's been, right? But interesting to note is that I have not owned Ferrari for that much of this season, but they've almost caught up to Mercedes in terms of points gained. So maybe someone of you who managed to have McLaren Ferrari earlier would be outscoring some of the Mercedes owners, and maybe we were wrong to assume McLaren Mercedes were the meta. The reason McLaren Mercedes were the meta though is because like that's how you afford, the only way to afford Piastri McLaren was to add Mercedes. Ferrari, you could not stretch to that until relatively recently. And relatively recently, if you remember, if you watched my videos over the course of this triple header, I spoke a lot about budget gains over these triple headers, and where how important it was to have the correct assets over these 3 weeks, because budget gain after this is going to actually have an impact on strategy. Keep that in mind, because we're definitely going to look at that in a second. In terms of positive events, these are you have fastest laps, driver of the days, and fastest pit stops. How many of those have you hit? Obviously, fastest lap is added to both the driver and the constructor. You can have the 2x there as well. Driver of the day is only added on a driver. You can have the 2x. Fastest pit stop is only on the constructor. And so far, I've 2 out of 9 hits. I've just not had Ferrari this year, right? In terms of driver of the day, 3 out of 9 hits. Fastest lap, 8 out of 22. Let me know your numbers down below if you have F1 Fantasy Premium as well. I would love to see where everyone is at on these positive events, because I'm really, these are the type of events that we are targeting. We're trying to hit these, and I would love to see how consistent some of you have been able to hit it. In addition, you also have the negative events, and I think this is the big one. Positive events, all good, all well and good, but ultimately it's kind of difficult to predict them, especially fastest lap and driver of the day, right? Negative events are really difficult to predict, and they hit hard when they do hit. I mean, fastest if you hit a fastest pit stop, right, you get 5 points. Congratulations. If you hit one of these, you get minus 20 or minus 30 or minus 25, depending on what kind of DNF or disqualification it is and on which asset. So these are actually the big ones, and so far this season, I have been very lucky. I mean, just look what happened this weekend. I sold Mercedes and I sold Albon. Albon DNF'd, Kimi Antonelli DNF'd, so Mercedes had a DNF as well. Now, granted, my tip of the week for the deadline stream was to sell Mercedes for 2 weekends in a row, because I thought it was definitely time to offload Mercedes. So it is a bit like, it's not like I was ever going to keep Mercedes, but it's still lucky in terms that Kimi Antonelli's car could have broken down when I had Mercedes, but it didn't. It broke down the week I sold them. So for that reason, I was very, very lucky this week. Again, with Albon could have just as easily had a DNF in another week, but he had the DNF when I didn't own him, when I just sold him, even though like my plan was always to sell Albon. It's just lucky by the times I've hit them. And at the start of the year, what I said earlier, right? Australia, I had 3 DNFs. I've only had 1 DNF since then. And 4 out of 58 DNFs or disqualifications is really good. In fact, if we look at the guy who's currently rank 1 on the global leaderboard, he's had 5. So my team is actually overperforming him in terms of negative events. So I've been really, really lucky at this. Obviously, no negative, avoided 2 DNFs in Miami. You can see that here as well. So I've been very, very lucky with these negative events and not been hit by them. By the way, if you're wondering where those 58 DNFs and disqualifications come from, it's because a DNF counts as 2, because it's a DNF on both the driver and the constructor. So if you had Williams and Albon this week, you would have gotten 2 DNFs minus 40 points because you had both the assets. So that's why there's 58 here, and not just whatever many there's actually been, which I presume would be half, so 29. And I've only hit 4 of them, so this is massive so far for me this season. Now over to the reason why I actually wanted to discuss this. Credit for this image right here goes to Faint on F1 Fantasy Tools Discord, and credit for me noticing it is Formula Fantasy Hub Rob, which I'm sure all of you subscribe to and follow anyway. This is an actual team that is in the game right now. The first real 2 premium drivers and 2 premium constructors team that I've seen so far. Now granted, this team is rich. This team is giga rich. And what I spoke about before this triple header was that some of us were going to have budget enough to reach a team like this. And I was right. This is exactly what I predicted. The thing is, are we really there yet? Is this the team you should be buying? And I think the answer to that is no. For the sole reason that Mercedes doesn't look great right now, neither for budget nor for points. But once Mercedes has some of these negative scores wiped off their record and they can start increasing in price again, and once they've reached the floor of their asset, this could be a very, very enticing team. And especially considering that they'll likely keep decreasing in price for a bit, it's going to be easier to afford this. And once we can start reaching teams like this, it's really, really, really scary. Because if you don't have enough budget to get to a team like this, when this team becomes meta, when this team becomes viable, when Mercedes, or if Mercedes rather, go back to being that 3rd fastest or even 2nd fastest team with George Russell ending up on the podium every other race for no reason. If you don't have enough budget to get to this team by then, that's when the people with big budgets are actually going to pull ahead. They're actually going to steamroll the rest of the competition and go on to win the entire game, essentially. Now, if we actually look here on my second account, this is my richest team in terms of budget. On this team, I have 115.8 million. My main team that I showed you the data for earlier is at like 114.8, something like that. And this team cannot afford what I just showed you. It's obviously that team, the team I showed you, also had Liam Lawson for 5.4 million. But if we add the cheapest assets available here, I am just shy by 1.6 million to be able to afford the Mercedes assets. So it's not an easy team to afford by any means. But assume George Russell will decrease in price again, maybe. Assume Mercedes will decrease the price a bit, and assume some of your cheap assets are also going to increase over the next couple of weeks. If you buy the likes of Hulkenberg and Hadjar and Lawson and all of those at the top of the F1 Fantasy Tools budget builder guide, we can really soon be able to actually afford these kinds of teams. And again, do I think like the guy on F1 Fantasy Tools who was able to afford this team, do I think he should be going out and buying it right now? I don't think he should be going out and buying it now, simply because Ferrari is such a good asset right now. But the fact that with this and the cheapest assets available in terms of the driver side, we still have 15.9 million to play with on this team, means that we're approaching Kimi Antonelli territory, especially since Kimi is dropping in price soon. He's going to continue dropping in price for the next 2 races. Granted, he has not decreased 0.6 million yet, which means that he has not reached the premium driver status. So we'll see if he continues to drop 0.6 million. The truth is, we don't know how Kimi Antonelli works. If the limit is at 18.5 million, or if it's something like once an asset has reached premium status, such as Kimi did, B tier status above 19 million, they can't go back down to being a cheap asset again, decreasing 0.6. So maybe Kimi Antonelli will just keep dropping 0.3 million. We'll have to see though what happens with Kimi Antonelli. But for now, he's obviously in a void, as he's going to drop for the next 2 races. But once he drops, once some other assets increase in price, soon we can build teams with maybe Kimi Antonelli in there. And overall, the meta right now has definitely shifted from McLaren Mercedes to McLaren Ferrari. Ferrari with the fastest pit stops, they keep getting it every single race. And Leclerc is like the new George Russell, who just happens to be P3 for no reason, even though he might not deserve to be there. Hamilton is not having the easiest time in the car, but I mean, Kimi Antonelli is also not having the easiest time in the car, and you cannot say that Yuki Tsunoda is having an easy time in the car anyway. I think there's an argument to be made that the second constructor should be a cheap constructor. It might seem crazy to say, but if we actually look at the performance side on F1 Fantasy Tools, so the live scoring here, if we actually just add a manual team, we look at the last race, I scored 274 points with this team. If you build the correct team, you are outscoring the double premium constructor teams right now. Now, granted, you do need to get it correctly. Like, if you had Williams expecting to outscore a double premium constructor team, you obviously lost out big time. But this weekend, a lot of people did buy VCarb because VCarb looked good, and they were correct. And right now, Hadjar and Lawson are really performing in that VCarb car. So say you build something like McLaren VCarb, and then let's add Piastri in there, because like right now Piastri is just, the guy. And then you had Hadjar Lawson, if you got it correctly, and you got Nico Hulkenberg. And then in addition to that, that would leave you quite a lot of budget. Not enough to, buy Lando Norris, I don't think, but say you had Leclerc in there, and we save the team. This sort of team scored 297. And I mean, it's definitely a team I can afford. Let's just go back and check right now, so I'm proving that I'm not lying to you. We have Nico Hulkenberg, we have Isaac Hadjar, and we have Liam Lawson. See, I even have 4.1 million left in the bank. With some cheaper assets, you could maybe even afford Lando Norris in there with VCarb. And if you're richer than what I am, you could definitely afford it. Let's just put Frank Colapinto and Fernando Alonso in there, and then again, I can't stretch to Nico Hulkenberg's 32-pointer, but I can get Isaac Hadjar in there. So like a team like this, triple McLaren, they're getting double podiums every single race currently, with VCarb in there, since VCarb looks to be the best of the rest currently. That could be a team going for it. You just need to get it correct. Obviously, you would have had to have Hulkenberg's massive 32-pointer in there, but in a normal weekend where Hulkenberg would have got like 10 points for a good performance and not 32, it would have been more even. But again, you're even in points with someone running two premium constructors. So I think the reasoning why something like a VCarb, or even, a Kick Sauber 52 points, which is insane, by the way. Or, again, even Alpine with 31 points. Everyone's saying VCarb is good. Alpine also scored 31 points. The reason why these assets are working right now is because each of the premium teams, apart from McLaren, have one driver who's just not performing, right? Antonelli is not really performing. Even when he's not having random DNFs, he's not really been above P6. Apart from in Australia, right? He's kind of been around that, P6 to P9 territory of in the result standings. Hamilton has not really gotten to grips with the Ferrari car like we expected him to this week. He looked decent in practice in Spain, but I don't know what happened to his race pace at the end of that stint when Hulkenberg just outdrove him on pure pace. And then obviously second Red Bull seat, I don't need to say much about that. We all know what's happening over there. So because you have a driver who's underperforming in each of the premium teams, that gives windows of opportunity for these cheaper constructors to actually be viable. Something like VCarb, something like Alpine, something like Kick. I mean, Nico Hulkenberg got P5. Like, P5 is a slot on the grid where a premium driver or like a second driver in one of the premium teams should be occupying. And right now, Isaac Hadjar's getting there. You have, Fernando Alonso is performing well when he's not DNFing. Even Lawson is doing decently. Albon and Sainz are definitely pushing for P5 positions. And then obviously, Hulkenberg was there last time around. So because like the P5 slots that actually get a decent points haul just from position, what we looked at previously with the position, at the end of the race being the biggest chunk of points, right? Let's just go back to the season summary and show that again, right? That the biggest contributor to the points that you score over the course of the season are going to be the position in the race, the position in the qualifying. So because these cheaper assets can reach like a P5 now, that does increase their viability by a ton. But, and this is the key, you need to still get them correctly, right? If you had a budget team with Williams instead of VCarb or Kicksauber or Alpine this week, or if you didn't have Hulkenberg, then obviously you would have been behind or equal behind or way behind the meta team with McLaren and Ferrari. And that's the thing with the meta team and why this is the new meta, is because at least with Ferrari, Hamilton, I would say, is the best performer out of the second drivers among Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes. You know, I'm not going to disrespect the GOAT. So Hamilton is the best performer, even though he's not really going as high as we would like him to. And in addition, Ferrari is swooping, you know, keeping all of those fastest pit stop points over the course of the season. I mean, the pit crew has been absolutely astonishing so far this season. So because of that reason, right now, McLaren Ferrari is the safer option. The safer option. If you can get it correctly with the cheaper assets, they can definitely outperform. And they will definitely out budget your teams with Ferrari. So if you want to go budget building route, I think this sort of point in the season, at this point in the season, it has opened up for that opportunity. You could definitely go for VCarb, you could go for Kicksauber. It's crazy that I'm saying that, and stuff like that, and constructors like that, because of the current situation we find ourselves in with the second seat at these premium teams. But right now, I'm obviously still on a team such as this, so we'll have to see what I end up doing with this. Hulkenberg is almost definitely coming into all of my teams for Canada, and maybe with possible double premium constructor, double premium driver builds coming up, we might want to be sitting on 3 free transfers in the future, especially those of us who have already used the wildcard. So just making 1 transfer to get Hulkenberg in for this weekend in Canada might be the move to make. But we'll see about that. As for me, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you on Monday for my pure team selection video, where I'll actually discuss which assets I'm selling, which assets I'm buying, and then at the end of next week there will of course be a final thoughts video, and then 2 hours before the deadline, 2 hours before qualifying on Saturday of the Canadian Grand Prix weekend, I will be live on both Twitch and YouTube streaming for the deadline, where you can ask your questions, submit your teams, and all of that good stuff. And if you want to watch me play some fun and games with F1 Manager, you can join me on Twitch tomorrow at 8 p.m. European time. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye.